Hello and welcome to the Disruptive Author. Today I'm very excited because we have Mrs. Jennie Lane from Southern Cross at Woody Point, and Jennie and I have just completed our second work of art. You can see the artwork behind there, but there you go, you've got your copy there too.
Got my copy.
So I'm just going to pop up here. This was the first one we did 2 years ago. And then this is the one that we've just recently published, which seemed to go so much more smoothly, but we'll get into that in a minute. Welcome, Jennie. I just want to start by saying how wonderful it is to work with you. But for the readers, the listeners, I should say, and the readers, because we'll do a written article for the magazine. Mm-hmm. What do you do? How long have you been doing it? And how is it that this came about for us?
Well, I've been in education for 30 years.
You don't even look old enough to be able to say that, seriously. But yes, I just happen to know that you have been. But okay, go on.
So half my time in New South Wales and half my time in Queensland. I'm pretty level pegged now. But my role at Southern Cross Catholic College Woody Point campus is PLL, and PLL stands for Primary Learning Leader. So that's a curriculum leadership role. I don't actually have a class. My teachers are my class. So I work with them and we plan together. We use the Australian curriculum. We analyse student data, and it's all about progressing student achievement.
And, how great that you're doing that in a way. They've actually set up and created a role where you're supporting our teachers, because if we support our teachers, and this is always our philosophy as our kids are going through school, support your teachers and they will get the best outcomes for your kids.
Yes.
How great that the school's actually thinking about that anyway and having someone in that role.
And we were lucky at Southern Cross that when the role was first developed, that our college principal said he wanted a PLL on every primary campus. So that's been brilliant for me.
Yeah. I'd love to, this is a conversation for another time, I'd love to see some statistics, because I'm sure being, school-based initiative, that you will have statistics on the outcomes as a result of having that level of support.
Oh, I'm happy to show you our NAPLAN data and our PAT data anytime.
Nice.
Good.
All right. Well, we might do that in another interview at some point. Yeah. Awesome. So just tell us about your initial stages when we first started talking about doing a book together.
So that was 2 years ago. And 2 years ago, the college had a strong focus on student writing. So I was involved in a lot of professional development and upskilling teachers, building their capacity on different elements of writing. And at the same time, I'm always looking for that way to hook students in and make it interesting and innovative ideas to support our students. At the same time, there were different story levels interwoven here, because at the same time as supporting teachers and doing lots of work with the staff, I had a group of students who I wanted to extend, who were showing a lot of talent in the area of writing. And so it was that sort of culmination, and then our mutual friend introduced us, and it was just the perfect opportunity where the stars aligned to provide our students with a platform to actually write for a purpose.
I just love the idea. We call them out of the box education experiences. Now we've actually, hashtag out of the box, because it's just, learning can be fun. Learning can be boring, and everyone's got different ways, don't they? So if there is a big carrot at the end of that, I don't know about you, but that's always made a big difference to me.
Absolutely, yes. So it started with just little snippets of writing for our neighbours, so just writing cards or letters of encouragement during COVID to just, a little picker-upper. We also have an aged care facility down the road, so I was thinking of doing something like pen pal sort of thing with our neighbours, but then to write a narrative and go through the process of writing a narrative where you get it to the point of being ready for published, that's another skill in itself. So that was really a really great opportunity for our students.
I really loved the first book launch that we did. I loved watching the penny drop as the kids realised they were actually published authors. That was a big moment for me. What were some of the highlights for you?
That actually, and I had written on my notes, definitely that book launch. And having them sign their copy next to their story and their picture. Oh, that was just so awesome.
It really just brings it home for them, doesn't it? I mean, you know, how many people were at each of the launches, then they had to sign all those copies. If they didn't get it by the end of that, they were never going to get it, were they?
Yes,
awesome.
I think it really, suddenly became very real of what they've actually achieved on that day. It was great.
Yeah. So, and I like that at the second launch too, we had that extra space. So, you know, it was just a bigger affair, I guess. Just felt bigger.
Part of that was COVID and having to have a space that was big enough for our 1 to 2 per person square metre ruling. Yeah. But that was good.
Did work out better, I think.
Yes.
So with the second adventure, what sort of highlights stand out for you? So how was it different or how was it better?
Just having gone through the process previously, I knew what to expect and I knew how to pace myself because I was the only one sitting with the students doing the editing and I knew that it would take around 3 hours per student.
Okay, so having that, calculated it right down to that, very good.
Oh, absolutely. So I knew how many I could get through in a week.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to take them out of class. So it did mean catching them at lunchtimes. When I didn't have a playground duty, I would sit down at lunchtimes, grab them. I was getting kids before school. I would see them after school. When we had our COVID lockdown, I was even editing via Teams online with a few of them just to get that, make sure that I didn't miss my deadline. Yeah. So knowing the time frame, knowing what I was up for, it was just smoother second time around. And working with you and sending you the time frame of this is what I'm thinking, knowing where we were with the published copies last time. It was a very fine line and a little...
It was, wasn't it? Yeah. That was part of the... it becomes an extreme sport when you're doing it like that. Oh. This time was more like a cruise up the river by comparison.
Yes. Yeah. So just knowing what to expect made it a lot easier.
Wonderful. Oh, well, that's good to hear from our perspective. So obviously as a teacher at heart, your learning outcomes are very high on your agenda. So what positive differences have these projects had on the students, would you say?
Oh, absolutely huge. Technically, I was teaching vocabulary, adjectives, synonyms. That was big. How to use an online thesaurus. You know, wow words, there's a better way. How else can you write it? Tautologies, punctuation, cohesion, sentence structure, succinctness. So one of them who wrote over 2,000 words, we actually got it down to 1,800 because she had elaborated and repeated too much.
She's obviously a real storyteller.
Absolutely. And for that one, who wrote about her dog, I would take my dog for a walk on the weekends and see a puppy, Dalmatian puppy, not too many of them around, and went, is that Sebastian?
Sebastian's become famous through.
So yes, met Sebastian and knew it from her description. It was funny. Yeah. And then also working one-on-one over so many hours, because a teacher doesn't get to work with students for 3 hours one-on-one on a story. So I was being able to give them lots of personal feedback, and individual feedback has a really good effect size. So then they take that on board, and then that's not just for this book and for this narrative, that's going to sit with them forever. And then as a strategy, as one of our NAPLAN strategies, we're also now, admin are now sitting with students one-on-one to give personal feedback on their writing to improve their writing for next time.
Oh, so there's no doubt in their mind then whether they're on track or not.
Yes, because I mean we BCE have outlined 8 writing elements. NAPLAN have about 14 that they divided into, but we can specifically focus on certain areas of their writing, and they were getting all of it when they sat with me. But it was just so beneficial.
Yeah,
go through that process.
Yeah, excellent, and that excites me. And I know Neva doing the all the formatting and pulling it all together, they get really excited about it as well, just being a part of that process, because it feels like it has a higher purpose than just creating something entertaining, for people to read.
And it was as much about the process as it was the product at the end.
Totally. That's fantastic. So how do you think the students actually feel? Have you had any feedback from them about becoming published authors?
Absolutely. First of all, your little pens.
Oh, yes.
Some of them were walking around with that pen for days in the playground. They would have their disruptive publishing pen. Very funny. But I had a couple of children. I probably had 3 or 4 students who were on a PLP, so a personal learning plan, which means that they're not operating at their curriculum level. Okay. And I had 2 parents contact me saying, "Oh, Jenny, my child wants to do it, but we're not sure." They didn't want to set them up unrealistically. And so I was able to reassure them, submit their story. They will be supported. I will work with them. So they're not alone in this journey, and that I will work their way through that process. So now these 2 boys have gone from hating writing to loving writing.
Oh, my God. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
That is what I would think would be the best possible outcome, because that's,
Absolutely.
You want to avoid it when you hate it. When you love it, you throw yourself into it.
And so they had an idea, and it was both of their stories were based on personal experience, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. And just to want to take that step and put themselves out there, they were brave enough to do that. I was so proud.
Okay, so even the courage on a personal level, there's lots of growth and development happening.
Absolutely. Then another little girl is ASD, so on the autistic spectrum disorder. Just last week, she was very elevated. It's the end of the year. There's a lot going on, out of routine. It's probably a bit more noise than normal. So she was quite elevated and left the classroom and took herself to learning support. She was greeted by one of our support teachers, and underneath her arm, she had her copy of her book, and she gave it to the support teacher. "Have you read my story yet?" "No, and I would love to read your story." So she read this little girl's story, and during that she just came right down. Then she was good, proud, left the room, was able to transition straight back into the classroom, all because she was a published author. Like that is.
I think I need her on my marketing team.
That's not even on my radar as what are the benefits of being a published author. That was just completely out of the box, and what a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Look, one thing that I just think, how do you feel? Like, I haven't sort of asked you this before. How do you feel contributing to all of these stories that you're sharing? How does that make you feel not just as a teacher, but as a human being?
Besides exhausted.
Oh, yes, there's that, of course. Yes.
That aside, I'm just really proud. I'm really grateful that they have this opportunity, and it is such a beautiful process to take them through and then celebrate with them at the launch at the end. It's just brilliant. I love it.
I love how you bring everyone up one at a time and they get to shake the principal's hand, and, your representative from BCE, and it's just such a validating part of the process. Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. So look, there is obviously, you mentioned exhausted, there's obviously a little bit involved in facilitating something like this. I'm sort of thinking I know what the answer to this is going to be, but do you think it was worth it, and do you think you'll possibly do it again?
Totally worth it. And realistically, this is every 2 years, this is a realistic project for so I don't get burnt out. But then I offer it for students in years 4 to 6. Yeah. So everyone has an opportunity, and our year 4s have the opportunity to write a sequel if they want to. Yes. So I think it's absolutely worth it. Definitely.
So talking to so if someone from another school in a similar position to you were to consider taking on something like this, what would be your top 3 tips to take on board before you move forward?
It certainly helped when I had lined teachers up, the year 4, 5 and 6 teachers, to teach narrative in term 1, because they're meant to teach different genres, but if they put that one first, then the students don't really have to think about it. When I say, right, we're going to publish a book and I'm wanting your submissions, they've already got something there that they go, oh yeah, I've spent a bit of time on this. And I think that's why we had more boys than girls this year publish. And I thought that was brilliant.
I love
it.
Yes.
Their teacher had taken them through quest stories. And so there's lots of quests in this edition.
Which I love. I do know that's quest adventure, it's fantastic.
And with that, one of the little ones, I was editing with him and there was a gap. So there was something missing with cohesion, and he was on an island and he had hamsters firing bow and arrows at him. And he hadn't explained how he got to the top of the mountain or the top of the volcano.
So something didn't quite make sense.
How did you get there? And what he came up with was quite extreme. I said, but do you think that's realistic? And he just looked at me and said, Mrs. Lane, if there are hamsters shooting bow and arrows, then I think we can get to the volcano this way.
Yes, I love it. You've been told.
Yep, okay, you've got a point there. It's your story. I'll get rid of that realism.
Yeah, this is fiction. We're not going to flip between fiction and non-fiction. We're staying in the imagination. That's wonderful.
So that was brilliant. Also, set up a realistic time frame.
Yep.
So for me, NAPLAN is middle of term 2, so week 4, week 5 of term 2. So I know week 5 or week 6, that's when I need to start.
Okay.
And that will then get me enough time to edit. So gather the submissions and go through the process. And also I would stick to, if there's only one person editing, I'd have a maximum of 30 stories.
Yep.
And I'd have the word count between 600 and 1,800.
Yep. Yeah.
And I think that's very doable.
Yeah. So all those parameters, those we'll call that structure, just putting that in place just makes it a smoother experience, doesn't it? I mean,
absolutely.
You're talking about really planning it the year before.
It's having that time to reflect now on what worked and what worked better this time around. Yeah. So knowing that in 2023, week 5, whenever that is, term 2, that's when I'm going to start.
Yeah, no, very good, very good. And we just love working with you, of course. And it's just such an exciting adventure. We should write a story about putting the books together. Yeah, it's just fun, just so much fun. So I want to sort of wind things up, but I would ask you, for any students that are thinking about contributing to something like this, what tips would you give to them?
First of all, have an open mindset, because anything is possible. And I look at those year 4 boys who weren't sure but wanted to. They had the desire. Yeah. So just put yourself out there and give it.
Let go of any limiting thoughts or limiting beliefs you might have. If you want to have a go. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And be prepared to not get it right the first time. And I don't expect you to get it right. And it's okay not to get it right, because writing is a process. And so many times I said, Mem Fox took 8 years to write Possum Magic. So look at what you've done in just these few hours.
Yes, yeah, wonderful.
And finally, you don't need a lot of dialogue in your story, because that's a bit tricky to follow sometimes.
Yeah, Yeah. No, that's good. Okay, so less is more.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Awesome. Look, I'm going to wrap this up because I'm very mindful that you have quite a bit to do and you're finishing up this afternoon. So this will go into our next magazine, which will go out next week, which I will obviously share with you, and you may like to share it with the students.
Yes.
So because the group picture will be on the front of the magazine, and we'll have information about the book in there. So that'll be exciting, even if it goes out next year.
Brilliant.
And they can see it then. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
so
Deb.
much for choosing to work with us. We just love it.
It's a pleasure, and you offer such a great product for our students. It's brilliant. Thank you.
Wonderful to hear that sort of feedback. Thank you, darling. And even with COVID, we still got there with the second one.
We did. We made it.
Yeah, so it should be even easier next time.
That's right. Thank you, Deb.
Talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.